In the bustling streets of a small coastal village, a stray cat named Luna became a local sensation for her peculiar habit. Every day, without fail, Luna would pad up to Miss Taylor's corner flower shop, gently carrying a delicate flower in her mouth. The villagers often watched in curiosity as Luna presented it to Miss Taylor, meowing softly and sitting patiently. Miss Taylor, always preoccupied with arranging bouquets, would gently shoo Luna away, puzzled by the cat's actions, but never paying them much attention. It wasn't until a casual chat with a customer that Miss Taylor uncovered the touching reason behind Luna's daily offerings. One afternoon, when Luna entered Miss Taylor's shop, a customer at the counter buying a bouquet chuckled at the sight of the cat with the flower. He made an offhand comment before turning back to finalize his purchase. Miss Taylor, her interest piqued, looked up sharply. "What did you just say?" she asked the customer. The customer explained that he'd heard Luna visited several shops around the village, seemingly trying to trade her flower for some food. Unfortunately, none of the shopkeepers ever fed her, as times were tough and business had slowed down. Luna would always leave empty-pawed, still hungry but hopeful. This revelation lingered in Miss Taylor's mind, and she decided to learn more about Luna's story. Up until then, she'd dismissed the cat's actions as odd but harmless. Now, she felt compelled to uncover the truth. Why was Luna bringing flowers to the shops? What was she looking for, and where had she come from? Miss Taylor knew she had to find out, and the truth would leave her stunned. Feeling a pang of guilt for shooing Luna away earlier that day, Miss Taylor resolved to do better. After the customer left, she walked to the small pet food shelf she kept at the back of the shop and picked out a packet of cat food. She placed it on the counter, determined to feed Luna the next time she appeared. "Better late than never," she muttered to herself. The following morning, Miss Taylor opened her shop as usual, her cheerful greetings ringing out as villagers trickled in. Amid the flurry of customers, she'd nearly forgotten about Luna. That was until a voice called out, "Oh, there she is again. Hi, Luna." Miss Taylor glanced toward the shop's entrance and saw Luna stepping in, her head low, holding a daisy in her mouth. A young boy darted over to pet her, but his mother quickly intervened, scolding, "Don't touch stray animals. We'll wash your hands as soon as we're home." Some regular customers, familiar with Miss Taylor's habit of chasing Luna away, murmured, "Better scoot, Luna, before Miss Taylor sees you." This time, however, Miss Taylor surprised everyone. "No, let her in," she called out warmly, smiling. The crowd parted, allowing Luna to walk further inside. Miss Taylor crouched down and gently placed the bowl of cat food she'd prepared on the floor. "Here you go, Luna. You must be hungry," she said softly, her tone far kinder than it had ever been. She stepped back, giving the wary cat space. Luna sniffed the food cautiously before digging in with quiet eagerness, her fluffy tail flicking as she ate. The shop's patrons watched, their hearts warmed by the tender moment. Miss Taylor stood by, arms crossed, her face softening as she observed the little stray. When Luna had finished every morsel, she sat back and let out a quiet meow. Miss Taylor knelt down, extending a hand. Luna hesitated before leaning in, letting Miss Taylor stroke her soft fur. "Good girl, Luna," Miss Taylor murmured, scratching behind the cat's ears. Luna's purr was audible, her eyes half closing in contentment. Satisfied, Luna got up and stretched before making her way toward the door. She glanced back once, her bright green eyes meeting Miss Taylor's gaze. The shopkeeper waved and smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in years. As Luna trotted down the street, her flower still clutched in her mouth, Miss Taylor remained at the doorway, watching. The villagers chatted quietly about the unexpected kindness they'd witnessed. Miss Taylor hoped Luna would be safe, and that whatever drove her to bring those flowers every day came from a place of hope and love. Even after she had waved Luna off, Miss Taylor couldn't shake the thought of where Luna might be heading. The cat visited her shop every day, but no one knew where she went afterward. Miss Taylor hoped to uncover Luna's destination one day. She stepped back into the shop, adjusted her apron, and greeted the next customer with her usual bright smile. The following morning, Luna padded back into the shop, clutching a fresh flower in her mouth. Miss Taylor was ready for her, crouching down to offer her a plate of food. Luna ate gratefully as a couple of customers watched with warm smiles. Miss Taylor gently stroked Luna's fur, and the cat purred softly in appreciation before leaving the shop once again. Luna's visits became a daily ritual, like clockwork, every morning at opening time. Miss Taylor always had a bowl of food waiting for her, and the customers grew fond of seeing Luna around the shop. Some even began to bring treats for her, eager to spoil the charming stray. Luna seemed to enjoy the attention, weaving between legs and nuzzling friendly hands. As the days passed, Miss Taylor found herself looking forward to Luna's visits. She made it a point to have fresh food ready every day. Every time Luna entered the shop, Miss Taylor greeted her warmly, and the customers gathered around to watch her eat. Luna quickly became a beloved part of the shop's routine, bringing joy to everyone who visited. Villagers began noticing Luna's transformation. Her coat grew sleek and glossy, and she started to put on weight. Passers-by would often stop at the shop to comment on how healthy she looked. Miss Taylor felt a growing sense of pride, happy to know her small efforts were making a big difference in Luna's life. One evening, as Miss Taylor was closing up, she noticed Luna sitting quietly by the shop door, waiting patiently. It was unusual to see her at that hour. Miss Taylor locked the door and looked down at Luna, whose green eyes gazed up at her with quiet determination. Her tail swished expectantly as she stood by the shop's entrance, as if she had something to show. Intrigued by Luna's behavior, Miss Taylor nodded, deciding to follow her. Miss Taylor double-checked the lock on the shop door, ensuring it was secure. She glanced back at Luna, who waited quietly, her tail flicking with anticipation. Once satisfied, Miss Taylor turned to Luna, her curiosity piqued. She had never seen the cat so focused before, and the thought of discovering where Luna was heading filled her with excitement. Luna began to walk, her steps deliberate and purposeful. She occasionally glanced back to make sure Miss Taylor was following before continuing forward. Miss Taylor followed closely, her footsteps echoing on the cobbled street. Luna moved with determination, leading her out of the village and into the quiet countryside. As they ventured further, Miss Taylor felt a mix of curiosity and unease. She hadn't planned for an evening adventure, but Luna's urgency compelled her to follow. The path took them past quaint cottages and meadows, then toward a dense thicket at the edge of town. The cat moved gracefully through the tall grass, her ears swiveling as she listened to the night sounds. The sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting the countryside in hues of amber and shadow. Luna led Miss Taylor to the edge of the forest. The trees stood tall and foreboding, their branches entwined in a canopy that blocked the fading light. Miss Taylor hesitated briefly, but stepped forward, following Luna into the wooded path. The forest was alive with the rustle of leaves and distant bird calls. The narrow trail twisted and turned, but Luna navigated it with ease. Miss Taylor, on the other hand, tread carefully, ducking under low branches and stepping over roots. She marveled at Luna's confidence, impressed by how sure-footed the little cat was in the growing darkness. With each step into the forest, Miss Taylor's intrigue deepened. What could Luna be leading her to? The air turned cool and shadows stretched across the ground. Despite the unease creeping into her thoughts, Miss Taylor pressed on, trusting Luna's instincts and determined to discover the cat's secret. The forest grew darker, and Miss Taylor began to question her decision. She paused momentarily, watching Luna disappear further ahead. The cat's unwavering determination urged her to continue. Taking a deep breath, she quickened her pace, hoping to keep up with Luna's lithe movements through the underbrush. Suddenly, Luna meowed and picked up her pace, darting between the trees with renewed urgency. Miss Taylor struggled to keep up, pushing aside branches and hurrying after the little cat. The sound of crunching leaves beneath Luna's paws guided her through the darkened forest, even as the path grew more difficult to follow. Miss Taylor moved as quickly as she could, her heart pounding as she followed Luna's lead. The cat weaved through the trees effortlessly, her movements graceful yet determined. Miss Taylor kept her eyes on the faint glint of Luna's fur, her curiosity driving her forward despite the growing darkness. The forest seemed endless as they pressed on. The sounds of the village had faded, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. Miss Taylor's unease grew, but so did her resolve. Whatever Luna was leading her to, she was determined to see it through. Suddenly, Miss Taylor lost sight of Luna. She stopped in her tracks, her eyes darting through the shadows. The forest was silent except for the rustling leaves in the breeze. A flicker of worry rose within her. Standing still, she listened intently, hoping to hear the soft patter of Luna's paws, or catch a glimpse of her in the dim light. Miss Taylor paused to listen, straining to hear any familiar sounds. Faint meowing and soft cries pierced the forest stillness, guiding her toward an old greenhouse nestled among the trees. She followed the noise through the underbrush, carefully navigating around tangled vines and fallen branches. The meows grew louder as she approached the structure, its glass panels glinting faintly in the moonlight. The greenhouse looked abandoned, with shattered glass panes and rusted metal framing. The door hung slightly off its hinges, its once bright paint now chipped and peeling. Miss Taylor stood a few feet away, noticing the overgrown ivy curling around the structure. The meowing persisted from inside, sounding urgent. She tightened her grip on the flashlight and cautiously stepped closer, unsure of what she would find. Miss Taylor approached the greenhouse with slow, deliberate steps, her eyes locked on the darkened doorway. The cries were louder now, echoing through the quiet forest and building her anticipation. She carefully stepped over broken branches and uneven ground, nearing the entrance with tentative steps. Glancing over her shoulder, she took a deep breath and stepped closer, listening intently to the sounds within. With a mix of curiosity and trepidation, Miss Taylor gently pushed the door open. It creaked on its rusted hinges, the sound echoing through the forest. A sliver of moonlight illuminated the interior, revealing a cluttered and shadowy space. She peered inside, her flashlight cutting through the darkness as she searched for Luna among the mess. Inside, Miss Taylor paused to let her eyes adjust to the dim light. Broken flower pots, rusted gardening tools, and forgotten supplies were scattered haphazardly across the space. Her flashlight flickered over the cracked tiles and moss-covered shelves as she scanned the room, listening for Luna. The cat's cries had quieted, leaving an eerie silence in the humid, musty air. The interior was chaotic, with shadows obscuring the corners. The remnants of old plants and tools lay in disarray, some still clinging to life despite years of neglect. Miss Taylor's flashlight traced the outlines of the cluttered space, searching for movement among the ruins. Her ears strained to catch any sound of Luna. Stepping further into the greenhouse, the tiles beneath her feet cracked faintly with each step. She winced, hoping not to alarm Luna, and moved more carefully. The sharp sounds of breaking tiles and scraping metal seemed to echo endlessly in the still air. Miss Taylor proceeded cautiously, her flashlight sweeping across the cluttered ground ahead of her. Dust hung thickly in the air, disturbed by her footsteps. Miss Taylor coughed softly, the stale, earthy scent catching in her throat. Her flashlight's narrow beams sliced through the shadows, illuminating cobwebs draped across the ceiling and dust motes dancing lazily in the light. Luna's soft meow echoed once again, guiding Miss Taylor further into the greenhouse. She weaved around toppled shelves and broken planters, her flashlight bouncing over the uneven surfaces. The cat's cries grew louder, urging her to keep moving forward. Miss Taylor advanced cautiously, her eyes fixed on the direction of the sound, determined to find the source. The greenhouse was dim, with only Miss Taylor's flashlight cutting through the shadows. She struggled to see clearly, the beam barely reaching the far corners. She paused briefly, scanning the room for Luna. Faint rustling in the darkness caught her attention, and she moved cautiously toward it, tightening her grip on the flashlight. She stepped carefully around scattered pots and tools, determined to find Luna. As Miss Taylor's eyes adjusted to the low light, she noticed movement in the far corner of the greenhouse. She squinted, trying to make out the shape. Her flashlight revealed the faint outline of Luna's tail, swishing steadily. Carefully, Miss Taylor approached, her heart racing as she drew closer, eager to see what had captured the cat's focus. Luna was pawing at something hidden under a pile of tattered gardening tarps, her nose sniffing fervently at the fabric. The cat meowed softly, her paws working to uncover whatever was beneath. Miss Taylor crouched beside her, brushing away the dusty layers with gentle hands. The tarps were old and frayed, piled haphazardly in the greenhouse's corner. Driven by curiosity, Miss Taylor tugged at the tarp Luna had been scratching. The urgency in the cat's actions spurred her on. With a firm pull, Miss Taylor removed the tarp, her breath catching as she uncovered the reason Luna had led her here. Beneath the tarp lay a small litter of abandoned kittens. The tiny creatures were curled up together, their faint cries echoing softly in the dim space. Miss Taylor's heart ached at the sight. Luna nudged the kittens gently, meowing as if to show her concern. Miss Taylor knelt closer, inspecting the kittens to ensure they were okay. They squirmed weakly, their eyes barely open, huddling together for warmth. Moved by the sight, Miss Taylor wrapped the kittens in a soft blanket she had brought with her. Carefully, she lifted each one, tucking them securely into the fabric. Luna watched closely, her green eyes fixed on Miss Taylor's hands. The kittens nestled into the warmth, their cries quieting as they settled. Miss Taylor placed small bowls of water and kitten food near the blanket. She carefully fed the kittens, their tiny mouths eagerly lapping at the nourishment. Luna stayed close, purring softly as she watched the kittens begin to eat. Miss Taylor gently wiped their faces with the edge of the blanket, ensuring they were clean and comfortable. Not long after, animal rescue officers arrived, called by Miss Taylor earlier to assist. 2 officers approached the greenhouse, carrying soft carriers and supplies. Miss Taylor greeted them, explaining what had happened as Luna sat protectively by the kittens. The officers listened attentively, nodding before stepping inside to assess the situation. The officers carefully transferred the kittens from the blanket into the carriers, ensuring they were handled with care. They laid soft towels inside the carriers, providing a safe and warm environment for the tiny creatures. Luna paced nervously, meowing softly as the officers worked. Miss Taylor reassured her, stroking her fur and speaking gently. The rescue team prepared to take the kittens to safety, promising Miss Taylor they would receive the care they needed. As they loaded the carriers, Miss Taylor felt a bittersweet sense of relief. She had done everything she could, and the kittens were now on their way to a better future. Later, Miss Taylor visited the shelter, where she decided to adopt one of the rescued kittens. A playful little tabby caught her eye, and after filling out the necessary paperwork, she brought the kitten home. Over the next few weeks, Miss Taylor devoted her time to helping the kitten adjust, providing it with a warm bed and plenty of love. The kitten thrived under her care, becoming a joyful addition to her home. The other kittens were placed in loving homes, thanks to Miss Taylor's efforts. She shared their story with friends and neighbours, ensuring each one found a family eager to care for them. She followed up with the adopters, checking on the kittens' well-being and celebrating their new lives. Luna continued to roam freely, often returning to Miss Taylor's shop. She became a beloved figure in the community, known for her gentle nature and the remarkable story that brought her to the greenhouse. Residents often left food and water out for Luna, ensuring she was well cared for. Miss Taylor always welcomed her into the shop, grateful for the bond they had formed and the extraordinary moment that had brought them together.